Hello there, this is Dead of Night Paranormal. Today we're covering the legend, the myth of the Wendigo. Some say Wendigo. Uh, I'm going to provide a little background on everything that people think they know about them. Maybe there's more. But let's get on with the show. Hope you enjoy. If you do, please hit that like, share, subscribe button, smash that bell. And as you can see, there wouldn't be nothing nice to run across in the dark or in the daylight either. But here in the dead of night, paranormal, we hope you stay in the light because you never know what you might find in the dark. This is going to be under fair usage 107 for education, criticism, and entertainment.
Stories about the Wendigo have been told for centuries, echoing fears of humanity's darkest potential. Like all of the beasts of folklore, the Wendigo tales strike up visceral images of things we all fear. Here's the truth behind the Wendigo. So one be two things. The first possibility is that it's a physical being, a hideous monster that stalks the northern woods, desperate to sate its unfathomable hunger.
Yep. Indian lore said it was somebody who committed such evil acts that they was possessed by an evil spirit of a flesh-eating demonic entity that craved human flesh.
Different stories described it differently. Sometimes it had the head of the stag, and other times it was clothed from constantly starving. It was sometimes said to grow and never eat its fill. In other stories, a Wendigo is a malevolent spirit that takes control of men's bodies, cursing them with an incurable need to consume human flesh. It was said that
are done really cruel or inhumane things to their families. They really messed up. They've done some terrible things according to the Indian lore.
Of cannibalism.
And his hunger becomes craven, insatiable.
This sort of storytelling is mirrored. If you don't behave, then Krampus will take you. And if you're too self-involved, you'll become a man-eating forest ghoul. The Wendigo originates in the northern regions of North America with the folklore of the Algonquian indigenous peoples. The term Algonquian in this case refers less to a single tribe of Native Americans and more to a subset of cultures based mostly around Canada, the northeast U.S. coast, and the Great Lakes regions. Many of these societies shared similar dialects, and importantly,
make you wonder. So many people talking about that. Maybe there's a grain of truth to it. Yeah, it's possible.
The life experiences inherent in a life spent in the punishing climate of the North. Starvation and exposure to the elements were very real dangers. And as with any culture, fears gave birth to stories and mythological personifications of possible threats. In the same way, the concerns about the destructive potential of technology brought Godzilla to the modern world. A very real fear of desperation may have led to the proliferation of stories about the Wendigo. Different groups had different variations on the mythos, but one thing always stayed the same: the Alkins drove it to take the lives of the unwary. According to
Bro, that's messed up. That sounds like some cruel things going on back then.
The legends, a Wendigo is almost impossible to escape. They are relentless in their pursuit of food and unaffected by the punishing elements. On their home turf, the unforgiving cold in the forests of the north, you're pretty much out of luck. Some sources say you're no better off if you make it to shelter, since the Wendigo, like the humble velociraptor, has no trouble opening doors.
It didn't smash a window or break the door. It unlocked it.
Wherever you go, the creature will follow, raking at you with grasping claws, tirelessly pursuing the despairing hope that you will be the meal that finally gives it satisfaction. Probably lose your mind. Every so often, a mythological
Yeah. All I know to say is if this thing really did exist, or it does exist, I'd hope I'd never run across one.
creature will become so iconic that a medical condition will be named after it. The chimera lends its name to genetic chimerism, in which an organism has more than one set of DNA. We get the word phobia from phobos, the Greek personification of fear. Narcissism, hermaphroditism, and Proteus syndrome all come from ancient mythology. The Wendigo, too, has a namesake, and as you might expect, it's downright unpleasant. Wendigo psychosis is a fascinating condition with a storied history. It's a term for what happens to people who, for one reason or another, turn to eating other people. Shock factor aside, it's especially eye-catching in that it isn't necessarily a result of being desperate for food. In fact, some of the most famous cases of Wendigo psychosis seem to have sprung up for no reason at all. Whether it's an actual psychiatric condition or the result of culturally embedded fears taking hold of people is a matter of debate, but the stories are gripping. For just over 40 years in the 1600s, a group of French missionaries of the Jesuit order traveled through New France, a wide swath of North America that is now comprised of Montreal, Quebec, and regions of the United States acquired during the Louisiana Purchase. On this mission, the men of the cloth interacted with the indigenous people, hoping to spread Catholicism.
Oh boy, sound like I got a lot of stuff to come into to try to learn about a new culture and sort out facts from, or should I say myths from reality. I don't know what you think about this. Leave a comment below. Do you think it's possible these things could exist? Hey, how would you like to run across something like that? I know I wouldn't.
They published stories of their encounters in a series of books called The Jesuit Relations, which used to spread word of their work and attract financial backing. In a particularly horrific passage, the Jesuits described the ill fate that befell a group of men they were supposed to meet. Reportedly, they had been overcome with a mysterious psychosis, which they described in detail. They become so ravenous for human flesh that they pounce upon women, children, and even upon men like veritable werewolves and devour them voraciously, without being able to appease or glut their appetite, ever seeking fresh prey. And the more greedily, the more they eat. The account continues, and we're told that the afflicted men had to be executed as this was the only cure for their condition. It's one of the
Well, the story of the Wendigo was always told by the Indian tribes, many different tribes across vast distances, and not all of them was friendly with the others, but yet the word traveled and make a wonder, is there any truth to this? Or is it just somebody lose their mind, starving in the wintertime over just fulfilling a basic compulsion that's to eat and survive?
first Western accounts of Wendigo psychosis in action, and it's also tied with every German fairy tale for the worst bedtime story ever written. According to the Edmonton Journal, a man known as Swift Runner was generally well liked for a while. He was a member of the Cree tribe, and he had worked as a guide for the local mounted police. But toward the end of 1878, he took his family into the woods and walked into macabre history. The next time he was seen in public was in the spring of 1879. He claimed that his entire family, including his wife and 6 children, had died of starvation during the harsh winter months. The police at Fort Saskatchewan, however, couldn't help but notice like he had missed a meal. They investigated his campsite and discovered grisly remains. Bones picked clean of meat, some with the marrow hollowed out, a skull with a shoe jammed inside. When confronted about the crime, Runner's story went on to become the go-to example of Wendigo psychosis, since it's believed that he had ready access to means of survival in his entire family. The full truth will probably never be known, and the world's most famous Wendigo was executed in late 1879 in Alberta's first government-sanctioned hanging. In the late 19th and
Hell, sounded to me like that was a nut job. I don't know about no supernatural entity possessing him and causing
Early
that.
20th centuries, there was a member of the Sandy Lake First Nation whose name translated to "He Who Stands in the Southern Sky." Known to the Europeans in the area as Jack Fiddler, he was a shaman, a holy healer with a particularly sought-after skill set. Jack could fight Wendigos. Jack claimed to have stopped as many as 14 Wendigos in his life. His method? Euthanization. When people felt the curse of the Wendigo and their misery.
Yeah, this is all factual. He led a messed up, hard life. Wait till you find out what happened to him.
Before they could do any real damage. Safe being better than sorry. As it was the turn of the century, when the Canadian government got wind of a mystical cannibal fighter, they didn't put much faith in the idea of spiritual medicine by way of execution. Mounties were sent to investigate and discovered a woman who had been strangled to death in order to pull the people-eating spirit out of her. Jack and his brother were arrested for murder. Before he could be executed, the shaman escaped.
What it didn't say was he was in a Canadian prison, and they never did figure out how, but a shaman walked out of a prison in the daytime and was never challenged by guards. He just walked out into the woods and down by a creek he hung himself. And they couldn't figure out how he done that, because you wouldn't think he'd have got out of there and he wouldn't have been stopped. How did he do this? That's a question I guess nobody will ever know.
Across the world who love Stephen King movies and novels, you're probably aware that the Wendigo plays a pivotal role in most famous horror stories. In Pet Sematary, an upper-middle-class family moves into a big, creepy house in a small Americana town, which is what usually happens to upper-middle-class families in horror movies. Through their friendship with a local alcoholic and a series of merry mix-ups, they discover that they're living within spitting distance of an hour. In the 1989 movie adaptation,
he shouldn't have went out there and buried their pet, because all hell broke loose for him after that.
Of a woodsy area and a vaguely defined spiritualism was enough of an explanation to get audiences on board. However, in the book and the 2019 remake, there's a cannibal monster helping to cause trouble for the central family. Yes, the spirit of the Wendigo is what drives the actions of the undead in Pet Sematary. Wendigo throughout history, little good keeping Hugh Jackman employed for the better part of 2 decades. Starting in the 70s, Marvel Comics co-opted the Wendigo legend, taking myths about a bone-thin forest demon and subtly sculpting them into antagon, a man cursed with hunger after committing an act of cannibalism in a Canadian wilderness. It was during a Hulk versus Wendigo smackdown that Wolverine made his first.
Yep, those were the days. So, what do you think about this so far? Hit the like button there, subscribe, share the video out. Feel free to leave a comment below. That's free. It'll help my poorly little channel grow.
Appearance. The scrappy little superhero still had a significant amount of rebranding to do before he would become a name. Still, he managed to down the Wendigo without using any silver at all, which must have taken some effort. So there you have it. The Wendigo is technically part of the same universe as Iron Man. No word on when he'll be getting his own movie, or how the MCU would square having a flesh-eating death demon in the same cinematic universe as, say, Baby Groot, but they've made weirder things work. In much the same way that the spirit of the Wendigo lurks in the corners of the forest, its presence can also be felt across swaths of popular culture. They've appeared in more than their fair share of B-movies, as well as episodes of shows like Charmed and Supernatural. Frightening monster that it is, the Wendigo also makes a great target in the world of gaming. They're the main bad guys in 2015's Until Dawn. Most recently, they appeared in Fallout 76 as the hideous result of regularly stretched out bodies, acid-laced teeth, and potbellies waiting to be filled with delicious wasteland wanderer gifts. There's even a mission where the player is tasked with killing one while dressed as a clown. For fans of adding a little horror to their kid-friendly cartoon gaming, take comfort in the fact that the Man-Eater from the North can be adorably summoned in the Scribblenauts franchise. Horrifying. No matter what your thing is, it's nice to know that they're share same interest. Luckily for it's far more realistic, but
color abilities, speed, strength, immortality.
There are the Iroquois and Seneca legends, for example, that tell the story of the Flying Head. The Flying Head is a giant, you guessed it, flying head, said to be taller than a man and hungry for human flesh. In some stories, it's the cursed head of a murder victim out for delicious revenge. In other tellings, it's the fate that awaits people who turn to cannibalism in the first place. Many of the Athabascan tribes indigenous to Alaska, British Columbia, and the Pacific Northwest told stories about the Wechuge, another man-eater, said to be the result of a person being overpowered by old, powerful spirit animals. And what list of human monster amalgams that got? She's the occasionally friendly Slavic forest witch who lives in a chick. Good news is that the Wendigo probably isn't real. The bad news is that, according to the law of averages, one of the other dozen or so camp there might be. Check out one of our newest videos.
What do y'all think of this? You have any ideas of any other topics you'd like to see me present to you? Leave a comment. You have any suggestions, ideas, complaints? Feel free to leave a comment and let me know so I can provide more content that you'd enjoy. But that's enough for today. Hope you enjoyed it. Fixing to shut it down. Hey, try to stay in the light. Never know what you'll find. You go wandering around. There just might be some truth to this.